What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I have another beastie quad here on the bench today to review for you. This is Eachine's TYRO129, and this is their 7-inch DIY kit version that they're offering. It's around $132, I believe, on Banggood's website, but we're going to get right into this review today because I do love 7-inch quads. They are notoriously hard to tune, and right away I have to tell you that once I had this built up, I had some real anxieties about plugging the battery in and testing this for the first time. Number one, because I feared the cheap components that were included with it. I was really kind of scared of what the quality might be for $132, kind of making me a little nervous. Flying a really big prop with some cheap type of random Genero stuff on here really was kind of scaring me. But as soon as I did my first 30 seconds worth of flight on this quad, I realized that the tune on the flight controller is really, really good. And the TYRO129 might actually fly a little bit more locked in than my Geprc Crocodil, which is probably my 2019 7-inch favorite for sitting it up and down the mountain. It has a huge truck bed right here. You can run like a 4S 5000 and get like 20 minutes flight time. This thing is crazy. But the biggest difference between these two is not only the tune on this one versus the Croc 7's semi-good tune. This one comes with a lot of TPU extras with GPS on the back as well. They're both Betaflight GPS, return to home, and all the bells and whistles there. But the biggest difference is the power system that's on the Geprc right here. The SpeedX motors, those are 2306 and they're 1600 kV. I've talked about 6S motors being able to get the longest flight time, and usually the sweet spot for the long flight time is lower kV. 1600 kV is kind of lower than what's kind of trendy out there for a 7-inch motor. Now, looking at the Eachine motors, these are 2507, so they are larger and they are great for freestyle. You can freestyle this quad like crazy, but they have 1800 kV motors on here, which does give you a great power, but at the same time eats a little more battery. So that's the biggest difference between these two quads. This one does have a little better power to weight ratio for freestyle. It's a crazy fun 7-inch to freestyle. So if you want a big quad that you can actually put a 6S 1050 on here or a 6S 1300 and just go do huge power loops, this quad will do it. So it does have duality on this quad. It will freestyle and it will also do cinema stuff with your GoPro up here. So I'll try to find you guys some type of GoPro couch to mount on top of your TYRO129. If I can find it, I'll put it down in the link below. But what I also thought was cool, not only do you get a great power system on here, you get a TBS Triumph style antenna in the back, and this has been one of my long range choice antennas for years. The TBS Triumph is kind of very famous in sending it out for a few miles or more on 5.8. It's really, really awesome. The other way that you can really send it out there is the VTX that they have on there. 600 milliwatt would get you out there several miles, and with the addition of GPS that comes along with it, Eachine branded their own BN220, so that's pretty sweet. Now you can just plug this in and you don't have to worry about wiring up all this GPS wires, which is really great. You can just go inside Betaflight, activate GPS, and set up your GPS in the CLI as well. I'll try to find a link to that. Oscar Lang has a really great document on his website about how to set up Betaflight in the CLI and make sure it works properly. Also, I'm going to recommend that if you're going to put the GPS on there and do some return to home stuff, guys, field test it first and make sure that you have it out past 150 meters. I believe it's the 150 meter radius around the home point. Inside that radius, if you flick into what we call, like it was recovery mode or something like that, return to home mode, it will actually drop to the ground inside that radius. So make sure you're about 300 feet or more out, and then failsafe will kick in and it'll fly back. It will not come in and land, but it will come back. And once it comes back, you can flip out of that mode and go back into acro or in stabilized mode like you were flying before. But GPS on here, that's actually a really good value for just a little bit more than $100. It's kind of actually crazy. So that means that you could put Crossfire on here and really send this quad out there for some epic cinematic video. Now, not only do you get some pretty beastie motors on here, you also get an F4 flight controller that both supports iNav and Betaflight. So if you want to put iNav on here, you can do that as well. And I think you're going to have more functionality out of your GPS and your GPS modes on your quad if you're running iNav. And for this large of a quad, some people say that Betaflight flies better than iNav, and personally, when I get up to this size, I don't really care about that. What I'm looking for at this size, if I'm going to do any type of range flying, I want more options for my GPS, and in my opinion, iNav might be a little more reliable than its counterpart Betaflight GPS. Now also underneath your VTX, your flight controller right here running, like I said, iNav or Betaflight, you have 40 amp ESCs, and those are D-Shot 600. They can handle up to 6S pretty easily. I did test it on both, but you can also run a 4S battery on here, guys, which is nice. The longest flight time I got out of this quad was a 4S 5000 milliamp battery, and I know it looks gigantic when you put it on here, but trust me, this power system can handle it, and you can get about 15-minute flight time out of this. The Croc 7, like I said before, with the lower KV motors on the Croc 7, the same battery will get me around 20 minutes flight time, so the KV makes a big difference. Now also up front, we have a nice top plate up here, 4 bolts to release the top plate, which is super great. You can see in the back here as well, just those 2 bolts back here. The TPU mount is back here as well for the antenna, so if you crash, this is just going to bend down. It's not going to snap off. It's not hard mounted to the top, which I like a lot. You have 2 holes here for mounting your, I just have XM Plus antennas on here. Those can go right through the top. And then up front, what I thought was really cool about this kit, for the price, not only do you get GPS, you also get a CADX camera, which is really nice. This is the Turbo F2 camera, and this is 1200 TVL camera, so it does look pretty good in the goggles. So I'm going to show you that coming up. We're going to do some flying with it. What I like the most about it is probably the fact that this is one of the funnest 7-inch quads out there to freestyle. I was telling someone at the field, I like to fly 7-inch, but mostly what I do is I fly them with cinematic stuff in mind. I don't really freestyle with 7-inch quads, and after flying 3 batteries on this one, I was out there kind of doing some freestyle with it, and I haven't traditionally done that before, so this is kind of a change for me. That I like the way this one flies. It feels more like a 5-inch in ways because the power to weight ratio is really good, so it has a really nice power to it. And I think another added value to this setup is that they included Dalprop Cyclones on here. These are the 7-inch 7056C props. They are a tri-blade prop, a little bit wide chord to a tapered tip on the end. It gives it a nice punch out, but also gives it a nice smooth sound when you come off the ground. Enough tech talk about this quad, guys. Let me show you some proof. Let's just go outside and fly it now, and I'll show you how much fun this quad really is, especially for the money. Here we go. All right, now let's get this Eachine TYRO129 up in the air, and I showed you a little bit of freestyle footage earlier in the first part of this review, and that was with the 6S 1050 battery. It gives it a really nice sort of power to weight ratio, really nice punch out. Feels really light on the sticks and high throttle, which is nice. It's really responsive. Now I'm flying the 4S 5000 and I'm making slower turns. It is more of a brick that you're flying with underneath the quad at this point. If you're flying a 4S 5000, you're doing it because you want to try to get a pretty long flight time. It is a pretty massive battery to put on a 7-inch. However, I've been doing it for a long time, and actually years in fact, and I've had it in some extreme places, in the top of mountains. I've had them down over rivers and way down rivers in fact, and they always perform and bring the quad back. And I think the biggest thing about flying long range, if you're trying to fly long range, the best choice for it in my opinion is going to be a 7-inch. There's a lot of folks out there that fly 6-inch, but 7-inch just feels like a whole different animal. It is super smooth, and it lets you really kind of slow down, cruise, and take in the environment in front of you. And this is where I sort of developed that style of flying called what we call slow flow. And slow flow is just slower, cinematic, taking your time, really nice and easy flying. And it's actually hard to slow yourself down and go easy on the sticks, and you will be pretty amazed if you do that, of the type of flow that you get. You can still incorporate some of those freestyle moves, and we started that thing called the slow flow movement, and we We've got some people on our Facebook page, and a lot of people love that style and do post a lot of videos. You can look that up on Facebook and check that out. But this quad would be able to slow flow all day long. And what you've seen so far is great. There's not as much, there's a little bit of bump in my Geprc Croc 7. It's not perfect. And this quad doesn't have any bump to it as far as the power system and the tune go. It's just ultra smooth. I mean, it's like butter. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for cinema type stuff. And again, I've talked about this before. A lot of cinema folks and Hollywood people that are doing film in California and the TV industry, they're looking for different angles, and they're doing drift car chasing. This quad is fast enough to chase a drift car. It's slow enough to get some really, really dramatic type shots. Long, slow, pans, reveals, any type of cinema action shots you'd like to get, slow or fast. But it's just really, really a joy to fly. I sat out here this afternoon. You can see the sun is going down right now. The shadows are long across the ground. I might have flown 6 or 7 batteries, and I had a handful of those 4S 5000s, and I probably flew it for a couple hours before I was going back home, but it was pack after pack. And this was the only quad that I bought out this day, so I was really hoping that it was going to perform well. And I mentioned before, some of the Tyro kits make me a little nervous. If I was to spend my money on it, I would hope that what I was getting would actually work. And some of those kits, if it does work, it's actually kind of an amazing thing. But look at this, man. I mean, come on, is there a better quad out there that's going to give you this type of video for that much money? Of course, you got to take in consideration I paid $400 for my GoPro, but you can get cheaper action cameras out there. There's some trees I'm coming in close to. So any type of cinema setup, you're going to have some money pumped into it, but if you already have a GoPro, spend $132 and you're good to go. But you're going to spend some money getting into this hobby anyway, so it's just part of it. If you're starting from scratch, you know, this is not really the quad for you. You're going to start out with something much smaller. A lot of times I recommend Tiny Hawks. This would be the Beast Hawk. And I love the dowel props on here. The 7-inch dowel prop Cyclones are really, really badass. They're really nice and smooth. I actually like them a little better than I like the Gem Fan 7-inch props that I've flown in the past. But I have to say that I honestly think that, I mean, I might be a little biased because I'm a huge 7-inch quadcopter fan. I love 7-inch freestyle quads and long-range cinema quads. And this is the first one that I felt like I really like out of the box that can do anything. It can do both, the best of both worlds, freestyle and cinema. So it has a little bit of everything. I wouldn't send this one out quite as far, but I would still send this one up the mountain and not be too worried about it. It's looking pretty good. The video just looks phenomenal. I didn't expect this. I expected it to like burst into flames when I plugged in the battery, honestly. And here we are actually making some of the best video of the year. It's just awesome. Thank you for surprising me bang good on this one, because I didn't see this one coming. So yes, one of the best flying 7-inch quads I've had all year. Maybe even flies a little bit better than the Geprc Croc 7. If you want to take a stab at flying some 7-inch, this is the one to get to start out with. The money. If you want the higher quality one, obviously Geprc is usually going to be the choice there. But the bang for your buck here is tremendous. It's crazy. It's like going out to know, going out with your friends and they take you to a bar you've never been to before, or a really awesome club. You had no expectations when you went out, but you had the best night of your life. That's kind of like what this quad is. For me anyway, that's my experience with it so far. But 15 minutes out of a 4S 5000 on this battery and coming home with this video just totally blew me away. And being able to freestyle, God. I can't call it quad of the year, but I'll call it, we're getting close to December now, and it's definitely one of the best deals out there that Banggood has to offer anyway. And it's just really, really fun to fly. Really nice and smooth. Let's head in back to the studio. I'll give you some final thoughts on the Tyro 129. So overall, let's just kind of wrap this review up. I think that Eachine might actually have a winner here with the Tyro 129. I love 7-inch, first of all, and the next thing that I love about this is the power to weight ratio. I think the punch out is great. It floats. And the third thing is that it has a really, really, really nice tune on here. So if I was going to give this a star rating, I might say like a 4.9 out of 5, which is crazy for anything Eachine related, especially for this cheaper Tyro kit. I have not been a fan of the Tyro series. Honestly, a lot of it has kind of scared me, but it's one of those kits that you can get from China that's like crazy cheap, and it's accessible to anybody. And it kind of honestly scared me when they decided that they were coming out with a 7-inch super cheapy DP kit. You know, $132 for a 7-inch kit is kind of wild. If you try to part that together yourself, you almost couldn't do it. It's a lot of gear for something this large. 280mm frame, large motors, 7-inch props, and you can send this one, and it flies really good. So tuned well. My only criticisms could be maybe that they could be 1750 kV motors or 1650 if you wanted to long range this one, but you're still going to get 15 minutes out of a 4S 5000, so you could put this thing out there for miles. You can go mountain surfing, and you can have a lot of fun with this quad, with running a GoPro on it or not. If you decide not to run the GoPro, it's going to be a great freestyle feeling quad. And if you really just want to send it out there for some long-range cinema stuff, put your GoPro up here with some type of TPU couch, and you'll come back with really stellar footage. So I think it's a great quad. And one last thing that I would suggest that Eachine does is please, God, change these motor wires. These are the plastic motor wires that they've been given along with every single Tyro kit out there. Please get away from this and use some silicone covering on the wires, and I will be a super happy guy. So everything else about the quad I'm happy about, and it's really probably the only thing I could complain about, that and maybe a little higher kV motor. But at the end of the day, you have a better freestyler, so you have the best of both worlds with this quad, cinema or freestyle. It's a pretty fun kit. And also, guys, to make it worth your while, I'll try to put my CLI dump down in the bottom so you can get the same tune on your quad as I have on mine. But happy building, guys, and hope you have fun with your Tyro 129. I really, really, really honestly love mine. Take care and have a great week. I'll see you on the next one.